Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, welcome. So we're in my barn again today for another hard conversation. I feel like that this barn is where I do most of my hard conversations. So as you can tell with the title, our goat, Willie, we tried to save his life for the past 2 to 3 weeks tirelessly, and unfortunately it didn't go well and we lost our goat. And it has been such a trying time trying to save our goat. And I actually started to film midway of saving our goat because I planned for this to be like a miracle story that I could share with you guys if you are a goat owner or want to have goats or something like that, and you stumbled upon a video like I needed when I was going through this. And I was hopeful that I was gonna have that video for people to be able to find and use in their situation of crisis during trying to save their goat's life from something very, very common, which is parasites, worms in goats that takes them out very quickly. So that being a very common thing in the goat world, there's a lot of opposing opinions in the goat world. We'll just start with that, because if you do stumble upon this video, if you're searching anything about goats or anything like that, or if you're just here listening to the story, that's fine too. But if you are one of those individuals that's actually trying to find some research on this for goats, is that half of the goat population owners will tell you don't regularly deworm your goats. Only deworm them if they actually have worms that you've gotten a fecal for from your vet and can prove which worms you're actually treating, so that you don't create any type of, let's just call it, immune. That's very common with horses. They've actually pushed back even the deworming schedule. When I first got into horses, they were like, deworm your horses every 4 weeks. And it was like every 6 weeks. And it was like, just follow the pattern of when you get their feet trimmed and stuff like that. And then now it's like been pushed to 6 months and such because of immunity to dewormers. Because there's only so many different actual active ingredient medicines in dewormers. So there's not a plethora of them. There's only a handful of them. So in horse world, which I'm very much more familiar with, is you would switch which ones you would use. So if you used something with one active ingredient, you would just, the next time that you deworm them, you would use a different dewormer with a different active ingredient. So that's kind of the concept of that. So the whole time that I've had goats, which has been years now, we've always gone through the method of don't deworm unless they actually have worms. So that's been perfectly fine up until just recently. My goat, Willie, our only male goat, was showing signs that he had worms. I had my vet out and they did a fecal, and it came back that he had a positive test for coccidia and barber pole. And at that point, we were like, great, we caught it. We kind of thought that that's what was happening. And they gave me a whole deworming protocol. So if you're really deep into the goat deworming world, it's actually suggested that you use multiple different deworming products with different active ingredients. So that's what we did. We started with Safeguard 5 days in a row. We started with Albon, and we also did an injection of ivermectin. So we did those for about a week. The ivermectin was 1 time. The Safeguard was 5 times, as well as the Albon. So we did that, and then we were also supplementing with red cell, which helps them, basically give them a lot of iron so that their blood cells rejuvenate, but it takes like up to anywhere from 7 to 14 days for a blood cell to be rejuvenated. So that already takes some time, but we were doing that. We were doing everything in the protocol. We were on their first week, then we were supposed to repeat the ivermectin shot and the Safeguard in 2 weeks, and then we would redo a fecal 2 weeks after that. So in the midst of that, he was fine when we were treating him, and then he started to kind of take a not very good turn. So like I said, that's where this video became, of when I was going to be filming this miracle story of that. I was determined that I was going to save my goat's life. When I talked to so many people, and I was talking to so many people in my area, of when they get these worms, and basically why with the red cell is because they get anemia. The parasites attack them so fast that it basically sucks out all their blood and it feeds them. Meanwhile, it's depleting the goat, and they don't have enough resilience within their blood to gain it back fast enough. So that's where the red cell comes in, and other things that you can do. Like we were giving him alfalfa. I was trying to give him bananas for potassium. I was giving him electrolytes, lots of different things that I was doing to try to make a comeback for him. And I ended up putting it on my Instagram story because he started to decline. And I was like, I need some help. And I knew that I had people on there that I talked to goats about with. So came back with different protocols and things. So what I did end up doing is I started to add more things into my protocol, because at that point, what could I have done? You know, I was trying to save his life. So then we started adding apple cider vinegar that is supposed to help activate that red cell, so that really starts to combat the anemia, as well as adding a B12 complex vitamin paste that I was doing pretty much from day one as well. And I was just trying to do anything that I could at that point. I was mixing magnesium into his water to help with his joints and such. So I was trying to do everything that I could, because I felt like I was in a losing battle already with how fast the anemia took him over, faster than we could keep up with even trying to heal him. So when I started to see that he wasn't doing well out in the pasture, and I wanted to keep him out in the pasture because I wanted to not really like shock him, and I wanted him to be able to graze and walk around as much as he could. But when I started to see that he wasn't doing well in the pasture, I ended up bringing him here into the barn so that he wouldn't be out stuck in the elements, because if things got cold or too hot and he wasn't able to move too much, because he was starting to get a little bit weaker, but he was still walking. Like, he walked over to the barn, drank water, had all the hay in here, loved eating all the hay. And I was like, okay, this is going to be good for him. I could keep a really good eye on him. I have cameras in the barn, and I just would be able to watch him all the time. Then, luckily, I did bring him in the barn, because within about 12 hours from then, so I obviously had an inkling to bring him in the barn because he wasn't doing well, he started to deteriorate even a bit more. Like, he started to get really weak, where he couldn't stand up on his own. But if we helped him stand up, he would stay standing up. Okay, Willie. Okay, buddy. Okay. He's not as wobbly in this moment, but the front is a little wobbly right there.
Yeah, it was worse earlier.
That's a good sign then. Anyways, with that, and why it's so important to me that I started filming, is because I didn't film thinking that this was going to be a failure. I filmed thinking that this was going to be successful. I was going to try my heart out. I felt like he had a lot of will to live, and I was like, this is going to be our comeback story of this, and I wanted to be able to share it, and I wanted to help other goat owners, because main reason what I'm getting to and why this is kind of taking me so long is because I'm still kind of in shock. He only passed away a couple days ago, so yes, he did end up passing away, as you guys can tell. But when I saw that he was not doing well, it was a Sunday night, and that's when he was in my barn. So I brought him in Sunday in the morning, and he was in my barn that day. And like I said, he started to take a turn, and I called my vet. We don't have like hardly any large animal vets. Like, I know that might seem so weird because I live in Florida and everyone thinks, but like in my area, it's like the horse community is kind of dwindling. So we don't have a lot of large animal vets. So it was almost close to midnight, and I called my vet that I always go to, the one that took the fecal. And when they answered, like, it was an on-call service. It wasn't my normal vet who I always talk to. It was another lady. I've never heard or seen her before, so I'm not sure who she really is or anything, but it doesn't matter. She was very friendly. And when I described everything about Willie, she basically was like, this is a, very clear-cut case of anemia that happens with goats that have parasites, worms. And she was not like shocked, surprised, or anything. And, she tried her best to just let me know, like, this is very common. If you have other goats, you need to watch out. And I'll be blunt with you guys. She told me that I needed to cull him. So if you don't know what that means that I needed to basically take him out of my herd. I needed to end his life so that he did not infect the rest of my herd. Makes complete sense in livestock world, because that's what goats are looked at. He is livestock, and that's just a part of understanding that. And she was very empathetic on the phone though. She said, I understand goats are also our pets, but goats are looked at as livestock, and they will take out your whole herd. With goats that have worms, they can easily transfer them, and then your whole herd goes down, as we just saw. So she wasn't surprised. She basically did not give me anything that I could really do. She said that I'm doing everything that I can be doing that they know in their protocol. She said she didn't really think he was even going to live through the next day with what I was describing. And she was like, if he does the next day, give us a call. We'll see what we can do. I asked, could we do a transfusion? And she said, that's really not common practice in this. And, you know, I was just like, okay, but in my mindset, I also understood that he was livestock. I also did take him from my herd. I knew the risk I was running leaving him over there, so I did take him from there. I actually even knew the risk I took bringing him into my barn. But everyone, you know, got dewormed, so I was just like, you know, we're gonna be okay with that. I need to fight for this animal's life because I didn't feel like I had anyone in my corner and I needed so badly some help. So I reached out to you guys on Instagram. Like I said, a lot of good feedback, but in that moment I was like, I needed a resource. So that's why I wanted to film a video, to be the resource, because I didn't know what to do in that moment. I didn't know where to turn. I had gotten a lot of information and I was trying to find the right information and I didn't see anybody curing their goat from such a bad state. And it was like, I don't know, I just felt like I wanted it so badly to work and I just didn't have enough like ammo in me, I felt like, because my vet was telling me that I'm doing everything I could and I'm like, there's gotta be something, like I've gotta be able to save this goat's life. So anyways, we just kept strong and we were out here so often and we were just trying to make sure that he was hydrated, because that was the big thing that the vet did tell me. She was like, just make sure he's hydrated, but she definitely did not think things were going to be looking up, and I just didn't want to go with the advice to let him go yet. I wanted to try. So we kept on morning, night, evening, multiple times a day, making sure that he had water. So we would basically force feed him the water if he wasn't drinking out of the bucket. I was giving him handfuls of horse grain because at that point I was like, nothing's really gonna hurt him at this point. He's on death's doorway, if that's the right thing to say. Like, I knew that it was approaching, so I was like, I'm gonna do what I can to at least get his body stronger, because that's what we were missing, was his strength. And as the days went, this was over a course of about 6 days. So I went from a vet telling me that he probably wasn't gonna last through the night, which she wasn't here, she couldn't see him, but just with what I was telling her, you know, she didn't think he was gonna last through the night. So I felt, at least when I got him through the night, that I accomplished it, and I was like, I got this. And then we were just making sure, they told me to just make sure he's hydrated. So like I said, we kept doing that. We were force feeding him water.
Brought him out here to be in the sunlight. Now we're force feeding him basically water to stay hydrated. We got him standing up.
I was giving him handfuls of grain. I was giving him alfalfa pellets that were soaked, giving him hay. He was actually starting to kind of make improvements. Like, he was starting to eat the hay on his own, and he didn't seem exhausted in that, you know, respect. So what's weird though is it felt like his brain, if that makes sense, like his mental state was getting better. Like, his will to live was getting better as the days went on over the course of like 5 to 6 days. Felt like that was getting better, but his body was deteriorating no matter what we were trying to do. Like, we just were trying to, as fast as we could, help build up his strength. And I was constantly checking his stomata to see if it was getting redder, because that would have meant that the blood is kind of starting to rejuvenate, and it just wasn't. But his like mental state was getting better, which was weird. Like, his functions were actually getting better as far as eating, drinking, like, because at one point when I brought him in my barn, when I said he was deteriorating, he didn't want to drink out of the bowl of water, so we were force feeding him water. Towards his like end couple days, he was actually drinking the water out of the bucket. In the beginning days, he refused bananas from me. At the end days, as you guys will see, he wanted multiple bananas, and I gave him multiple bananas.
Oh my gosh, eat the potassium. Should I give him another one? The good sugar and give potassium. Good job. All right, I think he needs another one. That was good, that was impressive. He didn't eat the banana like, what, 2 days ago?
And he was eating with purpose. So I was getting a little bit confused, because I was like, he's doing so good, but his body started to get worse. And when we would pick him up, before, we would have to pick him up so that he would stand, because he was losing that function. But then he just completely lost all function of standing. So we would pick him up and then he couldn't even stand. So that's what was kind of like confusing me, because his mental state and will to live was increasing, but his actual body was deteriorating as days went on. And I knew that I had to make a hard decision, and unfortunately he did not make it. His body couldn't keep up with him, and I, you know, held a lot of guilt because I really wanted to heal him, and I knew he needed a miracle in that moment, but I also knew that I was fighting something that was you know, looked at as really hard. And when I was talking to other goat owners, they were like, you know, this is gonna need a miracle as well. So unfortunately, I'm here to tell you that, you know, Willie didn't make it. And we tried our hardest to do everything that we could to get him to make it. And as you saw in this footage, you know, we tried, and we had fecal sent off to the vet with my other goats to make sure that we were treating them properly if it did spread, and I'm assuming it probably did. I mean, he had to have done that because he got it in that pasture. We do rotate our pastures with our goats. Sometimes they'll be in the back, sometimes they go to the side. They've been on the side pasture for quite a while now, so maybe that's how that happened. We were really wet last year, so the ground and soil, maybe, I don't know. We've never had this problem where we weren't able to catch it, treat, you know, take care of. And if you have goats, you'll understand exactly this. If you don't have goats, know that this is very, very common, and do your research. Do your research heavily about parasites in goats and making sure you have everything on hand to treat them. Luckily, we have a ton of stuff because we have horses, but still make sure that you have everything that you possibly can to have for your goats in case they get sick. And so I feel like this is like number one thing that can, you know, make your goats go down quickly, and be prepared for it. So unfortunately, Willie is no longer with us. We still have Minnie and Oreo, and they will start a deworming process here, but they are perfectly fine. They're FAMACHA, and if you aren't familiar with what FAMACHA is, it's basically the color inside their eyelid that you would check to do standard routine checking to see if your goats are on the brink of worms or when it's time to dose them. It's kind of like a telltale sign, and then you can go get a fecal and they can tell you exactly what you're treating for, and that's what we would always do. I always do routine checks of the FAMACHA to make sure that my goats are doing fine. So luckily, their FAMACHA still look really good, so if they do have worms, which we'll know probably in the next day or so, we will be able to treat them and they should be fine. Willie's FAMACHA just changed so quickly on us before we were able to treat, unfortunately. But that is my story. That's my unfortunate news I have to bring to you guys here again. This is, you know, been a heavy past, I feel like, year, but we're gonna, you know, just keep treading forward. And unfortunately, we were not able to win this one, and we won't win them all, but I am definitely more knowledgeable, even more going through this, because like I said, I've never been through a goat that didn't, you know, I've only had goats for the many years that I've had them, and we never had a problem with parasites. So this was my first time going through it, and I wanted this to be my first time that I went through it, but also getting all the way through it to the other side. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to, but hopefully I don't have to go through this again, and hopefully you as a goat owner don't have to either. But if you do, just make sure you're very, very prepared for it, and also just have to face the hard reality that this can happen. So that's all I have for you guys today. I am so sorry to report to you that he's not here with us anymore, but I will see you guys in the next video.